What's up, guys? Welcome to the episode 4 of Finding the Art in Combat. Today we're going to be going over a bunch of different martial arts topics, and I'm going to be interviewing SifuRickB.
On here, I'm known as SifuRickB. At the school, I'm now Master Rick. But
Ooh.
either way, SifuRick, Master Rick, Sifu and Master basically mean the exact same thing, So,
congratulations. If that, I don't know how recent that is, but definitely congratulations.
Actually, I hit 5th degree like right before pandemic started.
So right just in time.
I tested. That next week we went on a cruise. On the cruise, the world shut down, and then, yeah.
I understand. I have the opposite situation. I'm in Tong Sudo 4th degree as master, and I had my 4th degree test last year in July, right after all the pandemic stuff happened. But I still got the C word, which I'm not going to use because I'll get demonetized on YouTube and all this stuff.
I think we got it when we got back.
And so I was like, it was the week of my test, because in my organization, we do a week-long master test on this mountain where we go train, test our endurance, stuff like that. It's really great. I'm really looking forward to it, kind of scared of it, but it was the exact same week I got it. The 2 days before I was supposed to leave to go there.
Oh, that sucks.
So it was, I was so mad and feeling terrible. So it was just the whole thing.
Gotcha.
But continue, please.
So I've been training for 23 years now, with my teacher. So pretty fortunate.
Since we are on, that is absolutely fortunate. Most people do not make it that far. Since we're on the topic of your martial arts path, all martial artists have a unique journey that is unique to each of us. I've had one, you've had one, Ben has had one, Dan has had one. Every martial artist that exists has had a unique path that's gotten them to wherever they are in their journey. And so, tell me about yours. What have you gone through? What are some things that you've gone through? What got you started, and what kept you interested for 23 years?
So, aside from what I'm doing now, my dad got me started, and I don't know if it was Kempo. I don't know if it was karate. I was probably about 7 years old, and I remember going to somewhere and training, and it smelled like sweat, and getting my butt kicked every class, and me go, I don't want to go anymore, kind of thing. But it did light a fire under me, kind of moved away, and then started up again in college. Like, hey, I want to do this again, but I never could find that right teacher. Fast forward to a little after college, and I met a great instructor who I still talk to and I still train with every so often. And he kind of set me on that real kung fu path. Aside from, watching kung fu theater on Saturdays and, all the Shaw Brothers stuff, and I want to learn how to, fly and walk up the walls, and,
or the kung fu fighting song playing all the time.
Yeah, 5 deadly venoms, and, all that stuff. And I finally got to San Antonio, Texas, and I was at a place where, I need something to do in the afternoons, in the evenings. Man, now I got the time to do martial arts. And I came across, think about this, the Yellow Pages. And I flipped through the Yellow Pages. The Yellow Pages. And I came across, and I saw 2 schools that I was interested in. One of them, the ad was very fancy. The other one was a Wing Chun school that was, all the others had like a single, called, the name and the number. But these 2 were, I was like, well, I'll try the one that's not so fancy, because hey, I'm going to go off. They're probably not going to be expensive. Went in, and something about me and the teacher we didn't mesh from day one. And I already had paid my first month. And I'm sure if you know Wing Chun, it has a very distinct foot style, foot stance. And I'm in there and I'm trying my hardest to get my feet in this. And the instructor walks up behind me and pow, kicks one foot, pow, kicks the other foot to turn it out.
In your first month?
Like day 2 or day 3 of being in there. And I'm like, hell no. I'm like, man, you didn't even ask if I had any issues in my knees and my, anything. So
that could have actually hurt you.
Right.
Like, that is wild.
So that next day, I'm like, you know what? Mind you, it was $50 for the first month. Again, this is 20 some years ago. So I call up the other guy, and he says, hey, I've got a class starting in 30 minutes. If you can make it, come join us. Come try it out. Sure. I walk in night and day. Man, everyone was like, hey, welcome to the class. Everything's lit. Here you go. Here's my information. Here's my card.
Time out. I love how one of your qualifications for it being nice was, look at this light, guys. All these bulbs work.
Well, okay, look, I'm in my garage, right? So this is what the other place looked like. I mean, it was dim lit. That
really does have an effect on your mood and attitude and training overall.
It's going to set for another question coming up, so this kind of leads into things. So, I mean, and it was, as I'm talking to the instructor, he's, about my age. I tell him why I'm there, and he's like, man, I had a similar story. My first instructor, we get out there and we go to spar, and that's probably not even my first month in. And he sweeps me off my feet and like, pow! He says, that's just to show you what I could do. And he goes, and since then, I'm never going to be like that. He goes, just so my instructor before me is same way. Hey, we're going to be welcoming. We want you here. And just from then on, hey, me and my teacher are like this. We practically talk every day.
Yeah, that is absolutely a big part of any successful martial arts school, but more importantly, any successful martial artist that I know is that we have a strong natural bond. The best way to explain it to people that aren't in it is like in the military, right? I am not a military member. I'm not trying to say that I am. But in the military, you see these stories of people getting super, super close of the people they trained with, they fought with, they bled with. Yeah. And in martial arts, obviously, we're not, fighting a war by no means, but we're still training hard. We're bleeding together. We're sweating together. It builds a kind of community that is unlike many other sports. You don't see that as much in things like basketball, football, or tennis and stuff like that, at least to my knowledge.
It took a while. I mean, at first it was, teacher-student relationship, hey, he's my teacher. And then as it got on, hey, he's now my friend. Hey, come over to my house. I went over to his house. And now we're pretty close. I mean, now that I've known him for 23 years, it's kind of like, man, we're probably more brothers than just acquaintances or just some guy that I know, in my class.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, going on to the next question, I did some research on whenever I do these interviews, right? I like to pretty much stalk your Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter. I hate Twitter, so I don't even really use Twitter. But anything that could possibly come up, I try to do my research, right? So I know some good questions to ask you, and I know that from my research, and B, just watching your content, that you actually own your own school. I don't know if you own it or just fully manage and run it. So how did you come to start your own school, or how did you come to in the position of managing the school, whichever the case may be?
Okay, so yes, I own my own school. It's called Shaolin West SA. We are here on Instagram as well, so you can probably find us on there too.
I'll leave a link down in the description of the video for you.
So I was at the point, basically senior student with my teacher. You know, it's him, me, and hey, at the point, hey Rick, go run this class, go do this for me, sure. And then he opened up a second school in San Antonio, Texas. So I'm sure being in the Dallas area, San Antonio is not a small city, and people do
not at all. No,
people do not like to go from one side of town to the other side of town. So he opened up this other school, and he put this guy in charge. He was when I say right beneath me, just one rank below, within, maybe a year and a half behind me. He had more time, and he was kind of managing that school. But he was a young kid, kind of started running it into the ground. He wouldn't show up for classes. Hey, he'd leave someone else to run the class for him. And my instructor was basically losing money on his satellite school. So he said, hey, Rick, do you want to go manage the school for me? Sure. So I was teaching full time. I'm teaching. He said, hey, man, you know what? Anything over rent, you get to keep. I'm all like, real cool, So
yeah,
I started go running the school, turned it into where I was making, an extra $1,000 a month. Wasn't bad.
No, that's not something to complain about.
And it was completely part-time, and he got to the point to where he's all like, hey man, you want to buy it off me? I'm like, okay, tell me what I got to do. And he said, we'll just keep going off, but what will happen is you're basically going to pay me, this is how much I want to get, pay me, and then at a certain point, this is yours. I think it took me 2.5, 3 years to pay him off. And the moment that I paid him off, I went from a 900 square foot facility to a 2,700 square foot facility. Like that.
That's awesome.
My students, came in, it kind of flooded a little bit, and it took off from there. And I was teaching full time and running a martial arts school at night with the brand new baby.
That's a lot of work. That's a lot of stuff to do.
It was a lot, and then when it finally got to the point where I was like, man, I'm doing this and I'm making enough to where I don't have to teach anymore, full-time teach, and I can run the school. And hey, you know what? If I need to, we don't need to pay for daycare anymore because I can watch the baby during the day.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey,
get that trade off.
We save $1,000 a month on daycare, and we're like, woohoo, and made it to where it's now, kids are older, and I get to have my own fun now. Get to make
awesome.
TikToks all day, and then kung fu at night.
So when it comes to like your TikToks that you make all day, which I appreciate, I like seeing them. I've seen that you have very different and very unusual weapons at your disposal that you like to show off. And I know TikTok is a pain sometimes when it comes to weapons. We could talk about that for a long time, but we're not going to open that can of worms right now.
I know.
But what are your favorite, your favorite or top two favorite weapons that you use and that you own?
My favorite is absolutely the spear. I love its flexibility. I love its reach. I'm starting to see, and I don't know if you've recently seen that I've started doing a little bit of the singy stuff. Instructor Benze's been putting some stuff out there too, and I've been kind of like, duetting his stuff. But it's actually designed for spear. It was originally originated off spears, so it's kind of like, ooh, this is kind of fun to, to use the same principles, but with the spear. It just makes it takes everything to a whole new level. The other
That's super
that
cool.
I love is almost any double weapon. Double broadswords, tiger hook
Just
swords.
dual wielding. Dual wielding is solid.
Well, when I talked about one instructor that kind of got me started, he did the 5 family fighting technique out of southern China, but he also studied a lot in eskrima. So he started showing me some basic eskrima moves, some basic, redondas, some stuff going on with this, and it just made everything very just you see my hands just going like raw. It made it easy. So now I pick up double broadswords, it flows. Tiger hook swords flow. Kamas or the sickles, they start. Any double weapon, I just feel very natural in my hands. So
That's awesome.
It's fun to play.
And that's a good point that you brought up, like how the weapons, like people, I feel like people that don't really train martial arts, and especially people that don't train weapons specifically, they don't really understand that your weapon training applies to all weapons. And not directly, right? So like if I use a staff and master the staff, that doesn't mean I'm going to master the chain whip, right? But to a certain extent, the skills that I build up in learning how to use a staff can apply to a katana, a scream of sticks, nunchucks, obviously to varying degrees as the type of weapon grows vastly differently. Like, nunchucks are going to be more closer to a trisectional staff than a knife or katana would be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously there's a difference there, but it's not as cut and dry as, oh, I train this weapon, and so since you train bow staff, you don't know how to use a Joe, you don't know how to use a trident or whatever the case may be.
So one of the things I love to do is take a kata, and let's say it's designed for a broadsword. Can I translate this kata into a kwandao? Completely different size weapon, different weighted weapon. I've got a video on TikTok where I'm using a batleth. I took a Tai Chi kata. Can I do this Tai Chi kata with the batleth? Batleth, obviously is, a fictional weapon, but can I do it?
Still,
yeah.
Why not?
It works. It works, and holy crap, it works really well. Now, can I do this same kata with the batleth with my broadsword? That broadsword kata. That whole one topic about nunchucks and sticks. I tell people that are having trouble learning certain moves with the stick, start doing it with your nunchuck. If you can make it flow with your nunchuck, you can make it flow with the stick. And all of a sudden,
absolutely,
it becomes super smooth, because they have to keep. If you stop with the nunchuck, what happens? It falls and it hits you. So
you're forced to learn the thing at hand, the topic, the lesson at hand.
Flow,
and that is
the flow of the weapon using another weapon. Can you translate it over? People freak out because I'll grab a short stick, a Joe, and I'm doing a different weapon, like, oh, we're doing broadsword, but we're doing sword, and I'm using the stick, and they're like, what the hell? What's going on with that? I'm like, well, it's right here. So I couldn't get over to my sword in time, but you asked me the question, so let's do the same move. And they're like, but it works that way. And I'm like, well,
yeah,
that's how you learn a sword, is you learn it with the stick first. If you can't do it this way, then you can't do it that way.
So you are absolutely right. And you mentioned the recent nunchuck controversy that happened, that a lot of TikTok and Instagram creators jumped onto, which I think is great, that we can all have these conversations and talk about these topics, martial arts topics, throughout the martial arts community, and for the most part actually have a pretty nice discussion about it. Whether or not you feel like you're right or wrong at the end of the day, that's really irrelevant, because we had a nice conversation. But with that being said, there is a topic going around right now about child black belts and whether or not a child should be able to earn the rank of black belt. And honestly, I've seen a lot of people talking about whether or not junior black belts are a valid thing at all. So what is your take on that?
So, you and I have a very similar stance on this. I was watching yours and I'm like, yes, that's my same thing. Because I have students that are, my oldest student to hit first black was 64 years old. And she could do all the stuff. Anything that I asked her to do, she did. And she ended up becoming an inspiration to students because, well, hell, if Joyce can do this move, I should be able to. I should be able to do it. You know, a 64-year-old woman doing front rolls, and I've got, say, an 18-year-old kid who's scared to do a front roll. Joyce is over here doing it. Why can't you do it? So
that is amazing.
You know, and it's that was the thing. I'm like, well, you know, hey, they're doing it. Go. Now, as far as the kids, that same thing. If here's my curriculum. Can you accomplish this curriculum? Did you pass this? Yes. Why am I stopping you from doing this? Because let's say that 12-year-old did the exact same thing that the adult did. Exact same curriculum. Why can I not give them a black belt? Because they did the exact
you
same
got to
thing.
hold everyone to the same standard.
Right. Now, that being said, I'm not going to put a 12-year-old up against a 25-year-old to spar. 25-year-old's going to just wipe the floor with them. I mean,
Pretty much every time.
every time. Now,
9.5 out of 10 times.
that one, you know, dare I say, freak kid out there that's just, you know, knows exactly, you know, can get in an area like this. I've seen a few of those, but they're more likely not going to have that strength to take that whole battle mentality of, you've got to be this. And I'm not trying to poke on this, but I've seen most of the people seem to be in a certain age range that are saying, oh, black belts can't be this way. Black belts should always be, you know, they can't be junior black belts. Or if they're teaching, they're not teaching the kids. You know, I see it as the kids are our future. At one point, if we're not teaching kids, who's going to carry on martial arts?
That's very true. That's very true. So, okay. So I agree with you 100%. And if anyone watching this hasn't seen my take on it, just look at my account. It'll be on there. I agree with this 100%. But gonna play devil's advocate right now. So there have been a lot of people coming out and saying the maturity level is the reason the child doesn't get a black belt. Now, I'm going to keep my opinion. I'll say my opinion in the video. So if you're listening and you want to know my opinion, don't worry. I got you. But first, what is your opinion on children can't be black belts because of their maturity level?
So me as the instructor, this is my school and this is how I want the culture of my school to be. I'm in the perfect place to mold these kids. This is how you should act. When you come here, yes, sir. No, sir. No, ma'am. This is what you should do. Hey, when you walk in, make sure you bow. I have kids walking over and teaching other kids, this is how you do this. Whereas I have adults that are like, I don't know if I could do that. You know, who are fearful of doing things because that. Now, as far as the maturity level, I've seen some 20-somethings that are nowhere near mature as that 12-year-old. So it's kind of hard to say, oh, they don't have the maturity for it because, again, we can mold them. If I want this child to do a certain thing at my school, then they're going to do that. If not, then, you know, they're probably not the right fit. They'll end up leaving the school because, man, Master Rick makes us do this, and I don't like doing that. And we have to do so many push-ups, or we have to do so many kicks. And why do I have to do this kata? My hat says "Do it again." It says "Do it again."
That's awesome.
And,
That's awesome.
and I've got this big banner at my school because I say it so often. So what am I supposed to do next? And I point at the banner, "Do it again." How many times should I do it till you can't get it wrong? And then, that's that mentality.
At my school, it's a Korean school, and so we had we had a word that we feared, and it's dash, and it just means again. Finish a form, dash. Finish your self defense, dash.
And it's
over,
over and over. Again, we are in that place to instill that maturity, to instill what we want the kids to be like. If we can't do that as martial arts instructors, then why are we teaching?
Absolutely.
That's the way I see it.
That's a big thing. Teaching is such a big aspect to getting a black belt and to being awarded a black belt and earning a black belt. I feel like a lot of people don't see this aspect, at least a lot of people that, disagree with me on this topic, which if you disagree, that's fine. But a lot of people that I've seen that disagree with me on this topic don't necessarily see a black belt and the martial art curriculum and they don't see that it's connected to maturity and responsibility. Like, throughout my life, I've taught I've taught for several years. I've done several different seminars, and I have never promoted a student without them being mature enough to handle that rank. And that goes for not just black belt. That goes for every rank in between white and black. If I'm promoting to the first rank after white belt, which for us was yellow belt, then they need to show more self-control and more discipline, more mudo is what we called it, than that white belt, the white belt standing next to them. If I'm going to have a red belt, which is the belt just before their first dan, if I'm going to have a red belt be awarded a red belt, they're going to be able to be the role model for that class. I'm not going to promote a red belt without them being worthy of and showing the maturity of a good role model for everyone underneath them. And so if you have a child, specifically anyone between, 8 and 17, right? We'll give it a big range. Anyone between 8 and 17, honestly, anyone at all, that isn't mature enough to be a black belt, they shouldn't be mature enough to be a red belt. They shouldn't be mature enough. If they're not at that level, then why are they looking down that as the next stage? Maturity and self-control and discipline and what we call mudo is just as important as blocking, kicking, weapons, all these different things. And so that, I feel like people, like, yes, maturity is harder for kids to get a lot of times. That is 100% true. But that doesn't mean they can't show that maturity. And I've seen plenty of kids that can't, but I've seen also plenty of kids that can and earned their rank in my eyes, at least. But
I can
like
hear
what
you were saying.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So, like I was saying, it's the maturity level needs to be taught with the black belt. If you're not taught the maturity level as you rank up, of course they're not going to be ready for black belt when they get looking down that barrel. They're not going to be ready because they haven't spent, like, you wouldn't expect a white belt to be ready for black belt by criteria. So why would you expect a mental white belt to be ready for black belt? Like, so, that doesn't.
What are the things that we do when it comes to testing? And we do our testing different than, I guess, what I hear from other schools. It's not, hey, every month you're testing, every so many classes you're testing. If you were one of my students, when I saw that you're ready, I see that you're ready, and you almost know you're ready. You will know, kind of like you have this walk of confidence with your material. I'm asking you as we're working material, how do you feel with this? I don't know about this, this form and stuff like this. Or, man, I feel ready. Okay, you know what? Next time I see you, let's get you running on a test. So it's not, hey, you know what? Every month, or every 10 classes, we're going to be testing you whether you got your material or not. I know, and I want to make sure that you have your material so you can test, so that you feel, yeah, I got this. I had a student.
It's like that. I'm sorry for cutting off, but it's like that old saying. It's the community that builds. It takes a village. It takes a community, and that is what the teacher or instructor or sifu or sensei, whatever you want to call that person, it's what their job is. And going on to the topic of building the community and the martial arts community as a whole, there are plenty of haters out there. Like I have gotten plenty of haters that just are mad because I held the sword in my left hand, right? It happens all the time, and there's plenty of weird comments and hating comments to go around. Ooh. Yeah, there we go.
I might
hold up. How's that? Are we good there?
Much, yeah.
All right, so I'm going to backtrack a little bit.
Yeah.
No, I'm not sure either. I guess I won't really know until we finish. But like I was saying, I can still hear you pretty well, so it should be fine. But speaking on the martial arts community, there are plenty of haters that go out there and will hate on you for literally holding the sword in the wrong hand, or just how your knee has been slightly too much or slightly not enough. And I'll get comments nonstop. And I'm sure all of us do get those comments. So what are some of the most annoying comments or questions that you get on your page, and how would you like to reply to it?
Kung Fu doesn't work in a real fight. That's just the movies. That would never work. Those, BJJ would take it out in a second. And I'm like, that there's grappling in Kung Fu. That there's ground fighting in Kung Fu. Kung Fu isn't what you see on that Saturday, Kung Fu theater. Kung Fu is a very resilient. I call it the original MMA. It has a conglomeration of so many things, from Sanda to Sanjiao, every different branch of martial art I see comes out of Kung Fu. It's there. You just got to look for it. There's some.
I've heard it called the grandfather martial art.
Yeah, it's the farther that I've gone into this, the more I'm seeing. Like I was talking about Xing Yi, the other art associated is Pakwa or Bagua, and it is really the grandfather of Aikido.
It's also I don't know if you watch Avatar, but it's also the basis for airbending.
Yes,
which is really cool.
And I think I've done a TikTok where I know all four of the elements. I've learned everyone, something for every one of the elements. Of course, waterbending is most easiest for me. I like the Tai Chi stuff. but
I like that.
It's kind of, that's that thing that I always tell people, like, you haven't given it a chance. You haven't gone past what people see as more wushu, the flowery, the stuff that's made for movies, for TV, because in essence, real Kung Fu, real fighting, even Tang Sudo, real fighting is boring. It
really is.
It's if I'm going to be very effective, I'm not going to waste a damn bit of second. I'm in there, bam, going to take you out as fast as I can because I don't want to mess around. I don't want to be on the floor. I don't want you touching me because that's bad.
I like telling people that the truth of the matter is, in a real fight, eye gouges, throat punches, those are going to be the go-tos. Not taking someone to the ground, not throwing a kick that can hit their head. In a real fight, a martial artist that is a trained martial artist is going to go for a effective strike that is quick, to the point, and get you out of there 9 times out of 10.
So
it just is what it is.
One of our senior instructors was with our grandmaster, and they were watching one of the first UFC fights. I don't know which one. He's like, "Oh, you've got to see this," and this is before our grandmaster had seen any of this, in the United States, that kind of stuff. You got to watch this. You got to watch this. And I guess somebody went to the ground, and grandmaster's looking at it, and he goes, "Well, why doesn't he just kick him in the weak lung and just end it right there?" And he's like, "Well, you can't because that's an illegal kick." "Oh, this is boring. I don't want to watch this." They're like, "Well, if you can't, okay." But it's like, it could just end it with this one kick and it's all done. I'm like, oh.
Yep. And people don't see that. People that aren't trained don't really see that. And so that's where the whole martial arts is ineffective thought comes from, in my opinion. That and the fact that most people's experience with martial arts is A, movies, and B, the Olympics, neither of which is actual self-defense.
You got one more. Well,
What's that?
I did martial arts when I was a kid, but I only got to brown belt. I never went past this point. So, or they never got past blue belt. I never got past this. So they never really got to see anything beyond the basics. And there's so much more. And it's so, like I said, it's so deep. Kung Fu, Tai Chi, it's so deep that it's hard to really discuss it in any short amount of time. And it takes, 23 years in, and I'm still discovering things, every time I work with my teacher or go to our seminar with a grandmaster. Like, what? Oh, that's why we learned this 15 years ago, because you're going to teach us this now. Oh, wow.
Yep, absolutely. So I don't mean to switch topics on you, but I try to keep these shorter, so I will cut you off now. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But I want to go over 2 more questions with you. The second being, honestly, I feel like it's more important. But I'll get into that, in a minute. As an interviewer, I like to grow and learn and get better at interviewing as this podcast grows, so that maybe in the future I can have other podcasts doing different things that I can get better and better as I go. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that I think would really help me improve is, what is one question that you wish I asked that I didn't?
So I was thinking about this, and this is something that every martial artist deals with, and that's injuries. How do you or have you dealt with injuries and continue to train? Did you sideline yourself with an injury, or did you keep training? Your instructor tell you, man, you should probably sit out so that you don't hurt yourself further.
That is fantastic. For me personally, I've injured myself so many times. If you've been a fan of my content for a while, then you would know I lit my face on fire doing martial arts. I've broken every knuckle, every finger in my hand, in both hands.
I think one of the first videos I saw, you were talking about your nose being detached or something.
Yep, I've gotten my nose ripped off my face, but I'm still here. I still fire spin. I still fight. I still do all that stuff. So what are some injuries that you've gone through?
I've broken toes, broken arms, broken wrists. I've broken my nose. I've had ribs cracked. And because of that, I tell my students, keep coming to class. And they're like, what? I'm like, you can still sit on the sideline, sit in the chairs, and watch
even if
class.
you can't participate.
You're still going to learn. Sometimes I was sitting on the sidelines and talking people, walking them step by step through a kata, or, hey, your hand needs to be here. Don't forget to kick at this place. Don't forget this. And it puts you on a completely different level because you're no longer doing it. It's now you're conceptualizing it, and you can walk it through rather than, what's the move? My hand has to be here, or my foot has to be here. And you learn that kata in a completely different way because, hell, my arm was in a cast for probably 6 months because I had wrist surgery.
That's wild.
How do you train when you've had pneumonia?
No, you got to push on. That's how martial arts is.
I'm gonna bring someone up. Kevin Pereira. He was talking about he had stage 4 cancer and he was still training in the dang hospital bed.
Yes, sir.
So it's that other extra strength that kind of helps push us through to get things rather than, oh man, I broke my toe and I got to, doc says I got to keep my weight off my foot, so I can't go to class. And my thing is that once you sit on that couch, you stay there and you're never going to get off the couch.
You absolutely have to push through. No, that is 100% true. And lastly, only got a couple minutes left. So, what is some advice you would have for someone that is looking to continue or not continue their journey after black belt?
I would say continue because black belt is just the beginning. Everything under black belt is just the setup. It's just, hey, I'm introducing you to the fundamentals to that art. Beyond black belt is where the real martial arts is. You taking it and looking at a kata from a different perspective, which you couldn't do below black belt because you're still trying to learn the dang thing.
Your quote, beyond black belt is the ideal. It is so important.
But I want to thank Rick so much for coming on and talking to me on my live. I absolutely loved having him on and chatting with him. And so if you want to see more or hear more of my podcast, I record them live on my Instagram. So make sure you subscribe to my Instagram or follow my Instagram if you haven't yet. And remember that if this is live today, if you are hearing this the day it goes live, that night is when you're going to see the live recording of the next episode. So if you want to catch the next episode before it goes live on YouTube and Spotify and all those places, my Instagram is going to be the place to check it out. But until next time, my name's DJ Moore. This is The Modern Ninja, and I'm out.